Bulavinaka, and welcome once again to another segment of Speak Your Mind this Monday at midday, and of course recorded and replayed on television on FBC TV every Tuesday nights at 10:30. Now, I'm your host, Serafina Wedlock. Now, the Islands in the World Oceana International Film Festival, or the IWOIFF, is an annual event that showcases award-winning films and highly acclaimed independent films from around the world. Now, this is with a special emphasis on films about the Oceania. Now, generally supported by the French Embassy and also Film Fiji and the University of the South Pacific, the week-long festival will allow Fijians, of course, to enjoy films of international filmmakers from France, Britain, Australia, Italy, and Argentina. Now, here with us in studio is the film festival organizer himself, a passionate and enthusiast as well, Mr. Larry Thomas. Bulavinaka Larry, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Bula, Serafina, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, Larry, first of all, what is a film festival? What is film festival? What is it all about? Can you tell us, or for the benefit of the listeners, tell us all about the film festival?
Well, thanks, Serafina. I think film festivals really are a celebration of bringing films from all over the world. It's a lot of work, but at the same time, it allows people who don't usually get the opportunity to see alternative films.
Right.
These are the films that don't necessarily make it into the mainstream theaters, and also to expose filmmakers, to audiences, and the festivals happening. I think there's hundreds of film festivals all over the world, and now it's time for us to do our own.
All right. What are some of the most popular film festivals from around the world? I know the Cannes Film Festival is one of them.
The Cannes Film Festival, I think, is the probably premier film festival. There are a few film festivals in the world that if your film gets to that film festival, it's like, you've made it, you've arrived.
Right.
The Cannes Film Festival, there's the Toronto International Film Festival, there's the Berlin Film Festival, there's the Tribeca Film Festival. These are the premier film festivals, but there are other as good film festivals around. And in our region, of course, you have the Sydney Film Festival, you have Melbourne, you have the New Zealand Film Festival, and of course there is the very well-known Hawaii International Film Festival.
Okay. Now, how did Fiji get involved in the film festival, or how did we get into this in the beginning? I believe this is the second year running. Last year, how did that come about?
Last year, how it began was the Oceania Center for Arts and Culture were interested to have a festival. And I think it was generally an arts festival. But as you can imagine, to do an arts festival is a lot of work. And
Exactly.
I think so we decided to narrow it down. And Professor Vilsoni Heroniko, who at the time was with the Oceania Center, the director, left to return to Hawaii. And then I was asked if I would be interested to do this. At the same time, while they were thinking about that, the French Embassy was also keen to support a venture such as this. And so, in fact, Vilsoni and I were sponsored to go to the Cannes Film Festival a couple of years ago, which was a wonderful opportunity.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but also to work with a festival in France called the Rochefort Pacific Film Festival.
Okay.
And we went there to show his film and my film, but also to begin the discussions on having the festival last year.
Right.
And so there was a lot of behind the scenes preparation going on to the logistics, and of course the most important thing was just the funding.
Exactly.
And who would do it. And so the Rochefort Pacific Festival sought funding from the French Pacific Fund, and which is headquartered in New Caledonia, and together with the French Embassy and the University of the South Pacific came together to make it happen.
Nice. Now, from then till now, last year, how many films did you feature in the film festival?
Last year we had about 45 films,
Okay.
Including short features and short documentaries, and a couple of films from Fiji. This year we have almost similar number of films being shown. We had the dates for the festival was to coincide with a training. Unfortunately, the training has been called off, and so it sort of reduced the festival by a day.
Okay.
But but I think there's still a number of very good films to be seen.
Nice. Would you say that the interest in local filmmakers have increased since it first started?
I wouldn't say it's increased. There is definitely an interest, and I think with film festivals, particularly as you're beginning, it takes time to build. Huh?
Right.
You have to establish the festival, and I think the first 5 years, if you're able to go beyond the first 5 years, then I think you can say, okay, it's beginning to grow and become successful. Yeah, last year was successful, but I think the success is measured by, I think, the interest from the local industry and the development of the local industry. And I think until such time, then I can say, well, we're beginning to show.
It's too early to tell, basically.
It's quite early to tell at the moment, yeah. But we need. It's important, huh? And I think people say, well, the festival, we didn't have too many people watching, but you look at FIFO in Tahiti, and they've just celebrated the 10th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And it's taken off,
Yeah.
and the first couple of years you have your teething problem, but you build a reputation and you have followers from all over the world.
Exactly. Now, last year you did mention something about you and Mr. Henrico's film that got into one of the film festival. Which one? Tell us a little bit more about this.
Vilsoni made a film called The Land Has Eyes.
Right.
And it's a Rotuman film. It's a film about Rotuma and a Rotuman story. But it's essentially also about Fiji. And he made that film, and that's received, critical acclaim internationally, and shown in numerous film festivals. And it was Fiji's selection to the Academy Awards. And then I made a short feature called Enduring Hope. And this was a commissioned film, and looking at really race relations here in Fiji, in the context of the sugar industry, and what was happening then. And so we were invited to show our films at Rochefort, but also in Paris, and that received good response.
I'm sure it would. Was it the first time for a local filmmaker to enter into one of the international film festival?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Willy's film has, I think he's broken the barrier, so to speak, of films from this region, from Fiji particularly, to make it into the international film festivals. Of course, you have New Zealand, and you have Pacific Island filmmakers in New Zealand who are doing some excellent films. And last year we had a very well-known Samoan film that we showed here. So yes, there is, I think it's growing, but it takes time.
Of course it does. But yes, we'll be back with more. If you have questions for Mr. Thomas here, feel free to call us up 3220-906 and 907, and we'll be back with more on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. Yes, the Islands in the World Oceana International Film Festival. That's what we're talking about today. And here with us in studio, we've got Mr. Larry Thomas telling us a little bit more of what to expect and how many films will be entered this year. Now, Larry, I believe you actually went to a film festival to get some of the films that have entered this year. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yes, thanks, Sarafina. Last year and again this year, through the support of the French Embassy, they allowed me to go to FIFO, which is the Oceana International Documentary Festival in Tahiti. That's held annually, and as I just mentioned earlier, this year is the 10th anniversary of the festival, and there at that festival it goes for about a week. Again, they invite filmmakers, and the focus there is simply Oceania.
Okay.
But the one thing that I found, though, that we don't have too many films coming from, say, Tonga, Samoa, Solomon Islands, or Fiji, and filmmakers from these countries. We have films being made about Papua New Guinea or about Tonga, but from non
Tongan
nationals.
nationals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which is fine. So we've had a great number of films made about or on Papua New Guinea from European filmmakers,
Right.
from Europe, but also Australians and Americans. And here in Fiji, well, there's just hardly anything happening here, and so what tends to happen is that you see films, and I've noticed this in the last couple of years at FIFO, is the films from Australia and New Zealand,
Right.
a lot of films from Australia and New Zealand that coming, which are excellent films. But I think that, and it's again, of course, the situation is such, we just don't have the capacity at the moment to build our own filmmakers in this region. And this is one of the reasons why we want to have this. So yes, I went to FIFO, and also last year I went to New Caledonia,
Right.
to the Anuruaboro Film Festival in the north of New Caledonia, and selected films. And in Anuruaboro, it's the International Documentary Festival, whereas FIFO is focused on Oceania. So I was fortunate to go to both these festivals and select films from there to bring here.
Do you have a criteria when you go to select these films? Do you have like a criteria of certain films that you choose them from, or how do you go about doing that?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that I consider. One is the relevance to Fiji.
Okay.
The relevance to Fiji. Well, the relevance to the region, really.
All right.
Because
it's Oceania.
With Oceania, the subject matter. And of course I can't select all the films, so
exactly.
I've got to be very specific on what I want. And so, for example, there is a film called Nickel, the Treasure of the Kanaks,
right?
And which is shown here. When I saw that film, I thought, okay, it's a film about New Caledonia. It's about the Kanaks. And it's very, very interesting, particularly given the political situation that's happening in New Caledonia on the issue of self-determination.
Okay.
And another film, which was a humorous film, a Tahitian film called let me see here. La Compagnie de Archipel. And
right.
it's about a group of policemen from Paris who go to the Tuamotus. In Tahiti. It's a small island, and so of course you come from the streets of Paris to a small island with just several hundred people,
right?
To police the public there, and it's a film that's full of humor, but it also looks at a small island community that we can relate to, and some of the issues from domestic violence to drugs, and these policemen, they think, well, no, this is just like Paris. We have to deal with all these kinds of issues.
Exactly.
So it varies, and I think for me the selection is looking at relevance, but also looking at humor and story, and the importance of telling a good story.
Nice. So when you go to this film festival, you go alone, or do you have other team members that go with you to kind of bounce ideas back and forth from?
I go alone.
Okay.
They can only afford one person to go. Yes.
So it must be pretty challenging, though, having to use that, like say, okay, I think I'm going to take this and not be able to discuss it with someone else. And would this relate to the people of Fiji or not?
Yes. Well, I think I use my judgment. And I think as a Pacific Islander, as a Fijian, I can say I have a sense of what I think people will like. Of course, not everybody will agree. But I think also judging from last year's selection, many people enjoyed the films and the selection. But also it's important for the Fiji public and also the public who come to USP to see films that are interesting, that challenge them to think. And too often, you go to the cinema, you watch films, and you're not really thinking, because everything is there for you. And particularly with good documentaries, it sits there, you sit there watching something and saying, hey, they're discussing something very, very interesting. The issues are very, very, very interesting. And I think this is the other thing is also to bring films that can challenge people to think and also reflect about our own world and our own society.
That's so true. Okay, last year, did we have, was there local filmmakers that took part in last year's film festival?
Well, again, we had Vilsoni Heronico who came, and I think he was the only one.
Okay.
And I think it was, Also, I think our own local filmmakers are busy, and I think some of them couldn't make it. So I hope that this year, we'll have more of them.
Well, I'm just reading that there's 2 locally made films that will be screened at the film festival. A for Apples, and I believe Beauty Lies in the Eyes of the Beholder. Now, this I understand was actually a Cool Film Award a winner last year.
Yes, Beauty in the Eye of the Beholder is a film that was an entry that won the best film in the Kula Awards. It's from Rishikul Sanatan.
Right.
And an excellent film, a short 5-minute film. And the other film, part of the Kula Awards, was called Viti. It's called Viti.
Yeah.
But this was made in the US, but it's about a small part of Fiji's mission history.
Yeah.
And A for Apples is the film by Mohit Prasad. And it's really part of a bigger film, a feature film that he's producing.
Okay.
And if I could just have time to say something about
Go right ahead.
A for Apples. It's a short film, and it's half an hour, drawn from 3 main stories that make up the feature film, which is tentatively titled at the moment Jahajin, and it's in post production. It's really the narrative revolves on the consequences of the relationship of an indentured woman and a Kulumba, and who's an overseer Kulumban, whose name is Ashton.
Yeah.
And it's set in the early 1900s, and it's around the sugar refinery company, CSR as it was known then. And as Mohit says, this is a film that's a response to Walter Gill's memoir, Turn Northeast at the Tombstone, a very well-known book that looked at the indenture system during that period. And I think, this is an interesting film because it's part of history.
Exactly.
It's part of our Fiji's history. And I think, this is something I'm looking forward to. So Mohit has been able to give us a short part of the film, yeah.
Which will be featured at the film festival.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll talk more about the film festival. If you're interested, stay listening because there's still a lot more to come on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, where we're actually talking today about the 2nd annual Islands in the World Oceana International Film Festival that'll be held on the 11th to the 17th of April. Now, this is, of course, at the Japan Center at the University of the South Pacific in Suva. And yes, telling us a little bit more about this is, of course, the organizer, Mr. Larry Thomas. Now, Larry, I believe 3 of the particular features that you actually chose for the film festival that caught your eye was one that you'd like to talk about today. Tell us a little bit more about the first one.
Thanks, Sarafina. I think the first one, which is a documentary, is called 5 Broken Cameras. Yeah, and this is a film that was selected for the best documentary at the Academy Awards a couple of years ago, and it's by Ahmad Bernat and Guy Davidi. Who's Ahmad is a Palestinian and Guy Davidi is an Israeli director. And this is an interesting film because it caused a bit of controversy. The fact, because of the whole political situation in Israel, the Palestinians and the Israelis. And so, of course, you have this film. And if I could just read a little bit about what the synopsis. Huh?
Of course.
And as I mentioned, the film is called 5 Broken Cameras, and there are 5 cameras, each with its own story. When his 4th son, this is Ahmad Bernat's 1st son, Gabriel, is born in 2005, self-taught cameraman Ahmad, who's a Palestinian villager, gets his first camera.
Okay.
At the same time, in his village of Bilin, the Israelis begin bulldozing village olive groves to build a barrier to separate Bilin from the Jewish settlement Modi'in Ilit. The barriers cuts off 60% of Bilin's farmland, and the villagers resist the seizure of more of their land by the settlers. During the next year, Bernat films this struggle, which is led by 2 of his best friends, while at the same time recording the growth of his son. Very soon, these events begin to affect his family and his own life. Ahmad films the army and the police beating and arresting villagers and activists who come to support them. Settlers destroy Palestinian olive trees and attack Bernat when he tries to film them. The army raids the village in the middle of the night to arrest children. He, his friends and brothers are arrested or shot, and some are killed. Each camera used to document these events is shot or smashed. Eventually, in 2009, Bernard approaches Guy Davidi, an Israeli filmmaker, and together from these 5 broken cameras and the stories that they represent, these 2 filmmakers create the film. I think so. It's in some ways it's while you have the struggle of this man trying to record what's happening in his community. The fact that he approaches an Israeli filmmaker, and I think it's symbolic. Huh?
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. This sounds very interesting, and this is something I'm sure a lot of us would really have to watch. 5 broken cameras, and imagine the struggle behind making of this documentary and being able to watch this film. Something that the film festival is all about. Okay, Larry, you also mentioned that there are filmmakers that will be coming in for the film festival. Tell us a little bit more about the filmmakers that will be present, showcasing their films at the film festival.
Thank you. Yes, we're very fortunate to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 filmmakers.
8 filmmakers.
8 filmmakers coming from different parts of the world. We have Jacques Navarro, whose film is La Compagnie des Archipels from Tahiti. He's from French Polynesia. And we have, she's French but lives in New Caledonia and teaches there, and is also a filmmaker, is Anne Pitoisé, whose film is the Nickel, le Trésor de Kanaks, Kanak, which is the nickel, the treasure of the Kanaks. And then from Italy, we have a couple, Luca Bellino and Silvia Luzzi. And their film is L'Art de la Guerre, which is on the art of war. And from France, we have Hélène Lee, whose film is La Première Rasta, which is the first Rasta, looking at the whole Rastafarian movement in Jamaica and its evolution, and how, up to Bob Marley's.
This is a documentary? It's a
documentary.
Documentary.
It's a feature-length documentary.
Okay.
Excellent documentary. And Hélène Lee, lived in Jamaica for a long time, and this film evolved from there. And from our neighbor, we have David Batty, whose film is Kabel Bell, which looks at the lost art of canoe making in Papua New Guinea, in one of the tribes of Papua New Guinea, and how this particular tribe have forgotten how to make canoes.
Right.
And though they revisit through one of the elders who still had the knowledge, and they begin to build from scratch this canoe.
Nice.
So that's David Batty's film Kabel Bell. And then from Argentina, we have Martin Sola, whose film is called Hamdan. And Hamdan looks at a Palestinian prisoner of war who was captured by the Israelis. So, and each of these filmmakers will introduce their films and also have a Q&A session.
All right. And you also mentioned a panel discussion that they'll also be holding?
Yes. We have 2 panel discussions, Sarafina, scheduled for Monday afternoon. And the first panel discussion will be with 4 of the filmmakers to look at the documentary process, to look at how they went about making their films, from the concept, from the idea to looking for the funding and the process involved of going out into the field, filming, and then of course post-production, putting it together and then presenting it. And so 4 of the filmmakers will be on that. And on Tuesday, we will look at basically what's happening here in the country. This time looking at local television content.
Right.
And this has been a very contentious issue amongst, in Fiji's public.
Of course.
And if you read the papers all the time, there's people complaining about, not enough local content.
Not enough local content shows,
or, really a repeat of some stuff from Hollywood.
That's
and
true.
so here we have invited 3 representatives from the different television stations, from FBC TV, from Fiji TV, and from My TV.
Right.
And they will come and really just talk about what's involved.
Okay.
And sometimes, the public needs to hear also some of the constraints, and the challenges of having to produce a local program. But at the same time, it's not, impossible to do that. So really is to share experiences, but to look at ways of how can we, or what can we do to produce more local content. And I think, if we've had television here for over 20 years now, and we still don't have enough
That's true.
local content. So this is one of the things we want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of local contents, well, proud to say that FBC TV has introduced a few local contents, and we'll have more to come, I'm sure. But yes, like I said, if you have questions for Mr. Larry Thomas, feel free to call us up 3220-906-907 or text us on 825. Heading into a break, but we'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Serafina Wedlock. Now, continuing with our discussion with Mr. Larry Thomas, he is, of course, the organizer for the Annual Islands in the World Oceana International Film Festival. Now, that'll be held from the 11th to the 17th of April at the Japan ICT Center. Now, Mr. Thomas, okay, last year and also, previous years, we've had a lot of film entrants for the Cooler Film Awards. Now, just judging by some of the films that I know you are one of the judges every year, do you think the interest of filmmaking in Fiji has grown, and if so, in what ways?
Well, I'm not sure it's grown. Certainly, it's developing, and I think the credit should go to Film Fiji for initiating the cooler films, and it's been going now for a number of years, and that continues to grow. So if you look at it from that perspective, yes, it certainly has grown, and has the potential to really grow. But you get to a point where you have to then re-examine where the festival is going.
Exactly.
And I think Film Fiji is in the process of doing that, of looking. Okay, we've started with high schools. Now we need to take this further to another step or two steps up, and where they began this open category,
right?
And that category has slowly begun to grow, and the prices the prizes are lucrative, and I think in another year or two that's going to really take off.
Yeah.
And this is where this festival comes in.
Yeah.
Is really to try and complement what Film Fiji is doing, but also what FNU is doing. I think credit must also go to FNU for their course in digital filmmaking that they're producing. So we're doing things here, but somehow it hasn't really come together to the word that comes to mind is gel.
Yeah.
But there are people. We have some very skilled people here, some very talented writers, editors, camera people. But I think we need the capacity to be able to tell story, and I think that's something that's lacking, because you have to begin with a story.
Exactly.
If you don't have the story, you can't make the film. And I think there are some filmmakers who like to improvise, but to do improvisation, you need to have the skill.
That's true.
And I don't think we have the skills here for people at that level who can improvise and pull it off. So certainly, I think it's a growing industry, but we need to continue. And I think film festivals such as this, the work that Film Fiji is doing, is very, very important.
It is, and it also gives the local filmmakers or those enthusiastic filmmakers something to aspire to. Like make it to the film
Absolutely.
festival, and then if all goes well, maybe to the international film festival.
And I think for local filmmakers and for regional filmmakers, having a film festival here. In fact, FNU also have their festival, and then we have this festival. So if the film is good, and I think of course there are certain standards we want to maintain, but I think we can compromise, because part of it is trying to encourage and support the local industry. And if local filmmakers or people who are interested in filmmaking come and see and watch these films, they'll begin to get an idea, and hopefully the thing is to inspire them, and motivate them, and if you have the passion, then of course you'll just do it. Huh?
Exactly.
And so I think it's something that we will just keep plowing on to make it happen.
Coming from the film industry, do you think what are some of the challenges? I mean, locally, what are some of the challenges and some of the obstacles that normally deter film enthusiasts in our local industry?
Well, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is funding. But you can make a film for very little, and equipment. So you need the funds to be able to hire equipment, if you don't have your own equipment, you have to hire the equipment. That's the start. But I think if you have a good story, and I come back to the idea of story, we have many stories, but you have to be able to have a really good story and to be able to write the story into a script form. And unless you do that, then you don't have a film. So if someone has a good idea and says, okay, I want to make a film, and even if the film is, say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, as what's happening now with Kula, it's a start. And from there, you can ask around. There are people around. They can come to FBC, they can go to Fiji TV or, FNU.
Right.
If you're determined, I think if a person is determined,
they'll find a way.
They'll find a way. And so I think that's the start, And I think if you have that passion, then certainly you can do it. And then make a film that can be shown in this film festival. And there are filmmakers who come, but also people who are other festival directors who also come. And in the next few years, that's going to continue to grow. So people come, they're like scouting, and they will come and they'll watch and say, oh, this is interesting. I want to take this film to this festival.
Okay.
And that's what happened last year. So, some of the films that were shown last year were snapped up to be shown at other festivals.
Interestingly, you should say about writing a story, okay? Yep. How popular are script writers or script writers in the local industry? I know a lot of emphasis has been put on filmmakers, but how important are the script writers? And are they being recognized in the local industry?
Well, we unfortunately don't have too many script writers, or people writing. I mean, there are people who write poetry, those who write, prose. Script, very
limited.
Very limited, extremely limited, we don't even have plays and people who write plays. I think if you have that ability to be able to write plays, and you can write a script. But sometimes people can write a good film script, not necessarily a good play. But we just don't have that. And I think this is, again, to come back to belabor the point of this festival, the idea is to begin to build the capacity in different areas, right. One of which is in script writing.
Of all the filmmakers that are coming in, how many of them are their own script writers?
Well, I think all of them.
All of them
have to write their own scripts.
It's going to be a better opportunity for the local.
They have to do their own, particularly with the documentary filmmakers. They have to write their own scripts. Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell us a little bit more about the filmmakers. I mean, I know you said that they will be here come Friday. I believe they're having a.
On Friday morning, we have a press conference where we'll introduce all the filmmakers, and these filmmakers actually at the moment, because their films are very recent, they're quite busy, and they've been being invited to different festivals and also working on projects. We have Harry Freeland, who's British, whose film is In the Shadow of the Sun. And it's a film about the albinos in Tanzania. And this is a very controversial issue of albinos, but also it looks at how society views albinos.
Right.
And in Africa, it's scary.
Yes.
In fact, you have to be protected, otherwise you get killed. They kill babies, and people. Oh my goodness. And put them into isolate them into camps. Also, you have all these camps. You have these camps where it's just full of albinos who are children who've been taken away from their parents and from their family. And this film, In the Shadow of the Sun, looks at this whole issue.
It's a documentary.
It's a feature-length documentary, yeah.
Okay. We'll be talking a little bit more about some of the features that'll be, some of the films that'll be featured at the International, World Oceana International Film Festival. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our final segment on Gold FM. Glad to have you back on Speak Your Mind. And yes, our continuation of the discussion on the second annual Islands in the World Oceana International Film Festival that'll be held from the 11th to the 17th. And this is at the Japan ICT Center at the University of the South Pacific. Now, I believe, Larry, that this is free and it's for the week long and it's free to everybody?
Absolutely, Sarafina. This is one way to attract people to come. Last year, we charged a couple of dollars, but this year we decided it has to be free. So yes, people just turn up and they'll be ushered in, and you can, from 9 in the morning till 6, 7 in the evening.
And there's just one break in between.
There's a lunch hour break.
Lunch hour break.
There's about 10, 15-minute break. I think 10 minutes between each film, so I allow people to come out, use the washroom, have some water, and then from around 12:30, 1 o'clock to 2, it's a lunch break. And so people can come, have their lunch, sit outside, and then go back in and watch films and hear the filmmakers. But yes, it is free.
And there's 40 films altogether to be shown.
Right about 40 films, yeah.
Right about. So what happens is because there's 40 films, they have to go through all films, so it won't be repeated. Okay, so if you want to get the one that you want to watch, okay, make sure you have a listen out, because they also have a schedule outside the ICT Center.
Yes, we'll have a schedule, but we're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Oh, so there you go.
I should mention that.
Yes, you should.
we have one of our volunteers, Ariela Zibia, who looks after the social media.
Very hardworking, by the way.
Very hardworking, yes. And so the Twitter handle is at Oceania IFF.
Okay.
At Oceania IFF is the Twitter handle. Facebook, it's Islands in the World 2-OIFF. Just to repeat that, it's Islands in the World 2-OIFF. And also we have the first Islands in the World festival from last year, also on Facebook. So on Facebook we have the schedule, and it's also on the website. If they go to Oceania Festival, they will find the program on the website.
All right, Larry, you did mention that there's a team of you organizing this, and this is all done out of the passion for the film industry, I believe.
Yes, it's all voluntary, including chief volunteer myself. Yeah, and I think it's you have to have a passion.
That's true.
And an interest to do this for nothing. And it's not about being paid or anything. And I think I'm just very, very thankful to the French embassy.
That's right.
For being extremely supportive. The team there, Emmanuel and Fanny in particular, and at the University of the South Pacific, the Fale, the dean, Dr. Akanisi Kendrayate, has been extremely supportive of this, and the staff there. And I think, I have actually a couple of volunteers, Ariella and Wame Valentine, who've been very, very supportive and doing stuff. And again, because they're just interested, they're good friends. They're both busy people. They have their own full-time jobs.
How long has it taken for the organizing of this film festival? When did you have to start?
Well, really from last year when I went to New Caledonia to Task Selection, that was around October. And so October, November, and then sort of mid-January began to intensify. I'd done a preliminary selection of films, and then after the FIFO festival in early Feb, that's when things began rolling and finalizing the films and the scheduling, and also deciding, when to bring people. But for next year, we're going to invite submissions. I think on the website around October, we're going to invite submissions.
And this is submissions for
next year's submissions for film, both documentaries and feature from around the world for next year.
Okay. Yeah. Instead of you going out to select, they actually submit, and then you kind of choose from there.
Yes.
So you actually.
And that's how it's usually done. Also, people submit to festivals,
right.
and we learn as we go along.
Exactly. Now, next year, I know it's a pretty long way to go. But are there other big plans for next year's film festival apart from the submissions?
Well, I think and next year, again, we hope that each year it will grow, but we don't want it to make it big in the sense that too much is happening. For me, I want to have the training in a particular area, and again working with different organizations to make this happen, to invite filmmakers who can come and give a masterclass, who can do training in script writing or documentary or in feature film, an area of feature film production. And so this is really important to have that, but also again to select a wide range of films, and if we can hopefully afford to bring some more filmmakers who both this time feature films. Last year we had a feature filmmaker. This year we're specifically on documentaries. So next year hopefully we can bring a couple of feature filmmakers who can come, plus documentary filmmakers.
You also mentioned a journalist that was coming in as a filmmaker, and she'll be holding just a one-on-one with a journalist in Fiji on her experience on her film.
Yes, Anne Pitwaze, she's a political journalist from France, but based in New Caledonia. And her film won the Grand Jury Prize at the FIFO this year, and it's Nickel, the Treasure of the Canucks. And that's the film that will open the festival on Friday. Yeah, and so Anne is also going to have a session with journalists, and that's next Tuesday. And I think it's by invitation.
Okay.
But really, as a political journalist, I think to look at writing and stories, and also and that's extended into film.
So it's opportunities like this that this film festival is all about. You bring people over, they come and talk about, give their expertise, and also just train and also give ideas to our local journalists as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything? Well, I know you've been pretty busy with this, but I believe you also have a production in line for next week. How have you found the time, like juggling both events simultaneously?
It's a little crazy.
I'm sure.
I keep thinking that one day I'm going to cross the road and a car will run me over because I look in the wrong direction. Or if something will just happen, or I'll just lose my mind and walk around the street talking to myself. Yes, I have Carmen. I'm directing the production of Carmen. This was done 2 years ago and called Domoni Carmen.
Yeah.
But we're restaging it together with Ingelese Ete, the musical director. And it's again under the auspices of the Oceana Center for Arts and Culture and the Faculty of Arts, Law and Education at USP. That's on the 24th of April. So I've been juggling, film festival and Carmen at the same time. And again, a good group of people who are involved in Carmen, and that's an exciting production. And that's, as I said, opens from the 24th of April through to the 3rd of May.
Okay. Well, Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And before we go, any last words before we wrap up the show?
Thank you, Sarafina. Thank you for having me here and to give the opportunity to talk about the film festival. I'd really like people to come to the film festival. It's free, so there's no excuse. You've got to just find the bus fare to come. And for those living in Rewanga and Rewai, they can, walk to USP and watch the films, and to those who are interested in filmmaking, young filmmakers and older filmmakers, I hope to meet you there.
All right. Well, that is it from Speak Your Mind. Now, before we do go, make sure to take the time out. It's not every time we have, movie mania, I'd like to say. So it'll be a film mania at the ICT Center. So take your family down and enjoy the free showing of this very interesting and, of course, acclaimed feature films. That is it from us. Until next week, you have a pleasant day. And thank you for watching Speak Your Mind.